Okay, so scientific method, how it applies to psychology. I have a feeling this far along in school that you've all had some experience with scientific method because I think you've all been doing science experiments. Granted, in the time of COVID, you've been doing probably a lot of them remotely, but I think you've all been following scientific method because it's common in all the sciences. And psychology, for the longest time, was just discussed. But when Wilhelm Wundt went into the lab and started conducting formal experiments and validated psychology as a science, he followed scientific method in his experiments. And so, of course, those had to do instead of with a lot of things like chemicals and weights and anatomy, well, brain anatomy, but other kinds of things like that with anatomy and medicines and things like that. What we tend to think of sometimes with a lot of other experiments, he was looking at behaviors. And so with scientific method, where you're talking about formal observations, collecting data, creating a hypothesis, of course, very important, testing the hypothesis, interpreting the results. And of course, the research that they were doing was very, varied. He was looking especially at people's emotions and reactions to them, and he was looking at introspection, of course. What they thought about those reactions to things. Today, especially in the United States, we're following APA ethics guidelines, of course, the American Psychological Association, and human rights and people's rights, because sometimes there wasn't so much of that necessarily always happening, and we want to make sure that human rights are being followed. But scientific method, make an observation, decide what your the topic is, publish that literature, what related findings are there, is there anything else going on about that, and they're going to take that to guide their hypothesis. Ask the question. What's this question? They're going to write the hypothesis, make that or an educated guess idea. Critical feature of a hypothesis is ensuring that it will be written in a way that can be falsified. If it can't be falsified, then they can't be able to see if their hypothesis is right or wrong. Step 3, test the hypothesis and collect data. Collect lots and lots of data. Examine your results. Statistics, data. Examine it. Over and over and over again. Test and retest, and look at that data, and then report the results. They write it up. Was their hypothesis right or wrong? They publish it. Other people are going to try to replicate it. That's what they want to do. Peer reviews. This is kind of the thing here. And then here's our observation, question, hypothesis, experiment, analysis, conclusion. And it often gets repeated. And again and again.